You are listening to Beyond the Verse, a Star Citizen podcast. A show dedicated to Cloud Imperium games, Star Citizen, and Squadron 42. Whether you fight, explore, unite, and/or trade, we bring you news, updates, interviews, reviews, and analysis. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a pour of Radegast, and join us as we go Beyond the Verse.
Launch sequence activated.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Beyond the Verse Star Citizen podcast. I'm your host, Sulyce, and on today's episode, we are covering this past week in Star Citizen, which wasn't too heavy with news and updates and analysis, but we did get into the June 2024 subscription promotions, and we did get into Star Citizen Monthly Report. We do have a few updates with the two patches that are coming down the pipeline. That's 323.1 alpha and 323.2 that we will get into in a little bit. But again, not a lot to discuss. I imagine this will be a shot glass of a podcast, but we'll get through a lot of information as we can, and a little bit of a response, and the reason behind me titling this episode Star Citizen as We Knew It. Don't mean to be over dramatic or really play into that emotion, but I just have a message that I want to send my listeners and viewers, but we will ease into that conversation in the next couple of minutes. But first, a message from our sponsors. Welcome back. I hope this finds you well. Since we last spoke last Friday, I did have my camping trip, and I put a little message on social media and shared that I would be quote unquote touching grass, as I guess the millennials say nowadays. But it was a lot of fun. So a little bit of a backstory. Just want to share this with you as I consider y'all friends, and I'm sure y'all are invested in who I am. But I lead an executive protective service team. Right now we're focused on our church that we go to. We protect the congregation. We protect the lead principal, whichever pastor is on stage. So we do get out once a month. We do some training. I coordinate rifle range time, advanced rifle marksmanship, all that kind of fun stuff. Straight from the military, straight into what we're doing here for EPS. Well, I also like doing other things as well. So anytime I'm able to incorporate the EPS training with off-roading, camping, I will try. So there's this amazing location around the Austin, Texas area. It's actually Marble Falls, Texas, called Hidden Falls Adventure Park. It's basically camping grounds around a massive off-roading park. So lots of trails. I just purchased the GoPro Hero Black 12, and I have a ball mount and everything for my Rubicon that I'm going to install it on. So for future off-roading sessions, I'll try my best to get some really good video and really good coverage. But it was exciting. It was really exciting. So if you're a listener to this podcast, you knew for the last 10 years I've had the Ford Raptor. It was 2014. It was beautiful. It was my dream truck getting out of the military that my wife blessed me with. And I would take it off-roading like maybe 3 times. I would say 4 max. I babied it. But the few times I was able to take it off-road, it was fine. It was just long, right? It's a long vehicle to be taking up rocks and around corners and whatnot. So like think of the Corsair. The Corsair, it's Drake, so it has that kind of, off-roading blue collar type feel to it, but it's just big and clunky. Well, again, if you're a listener to the show, a few episodes ago, I divulged. I ended up getting my long time dream vehicle, like before I knew about the Raptor. Since I was a kid, I wanted a Jeep with the top off. And so I finally got it. It's got like less than 6,000 miles on it. And I broke it in. Didn't break it. I broke it in on the trails. And it was a lot of fun. Again, just sharing. It reminds me of, and I'm trying to relate this to Star Citizen, but it reminds me of going and taking like the Cutter Rambler out and just doing an adventure, exploration run, or even like a delivery mission. It just feels like a camper. Well, the Jeep's not a camper, but the idea of camping and getting out there and just getting kind of lost in the exploration. And so it was fun. It's fun for me to do those things, to go shoot, to go off-roading, to camp, to do all the things and have some sort of like tie-in to how I play Star Citizen. So just wanted to share that with you. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't off-roaded before, it's scary. I had many moments of my butt puckering. Sorry for the analogy, but like there are times when you're leaning sideways and you're thinking, here's where I roll. Here's where I fall out of my Jeep and I die. But it was good. We waded in water, which was always scary to do with a vehicle, but just many moments that I could take with me. But just, again, wanted to share that with you. Fast forward this week, I hosted leadership from my team at Amazon. I hosted leadership here in Austin, Texas, so I wasn't as engaged in Star Citizen this week as I usually am. So I've asked one poll as opposed to many. I asked one single poll, and there luckily wasn't a lot of Star Citizen information this week to cover. Much like next week, I will be in Seattle, Washington next week. So I'm not really going to be able to engage with the community ask polls. And so I'm kind of selfishly hoping that 323 1 alpha kind of just stays and cooks for just a little bit longer, because I want to be part of the initial grab of Xenothreat when it happens. But I did, like I said, I did pick up the GoPro Hero 12 Black Creator Edition, blah blah blah, that arrives today. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to take it with me to Seattle, I'm going to play around with that. And I say this because I haven't really done a lot of like TikTok videos lately. Usually I splice my videos and I put it out there throughout the week to just build that network, to build the exposure. But I don't know, like I don't enjoy that. Viewers might enjoy that, but if I'm not enjoying it, it's not going to translate. It's not going to translate into good content. And so I'm trying to decide the direction to take Beyond the Verse podcast from an other platform perspective. Like TikTok can't just be a splicing of the podcast. So figuring it out, stand by. Again, I'll be in Seattle next week. We'll see what kind of creativity I can get into. But again, I would recommend, I was going to say go to my socials, but just go to bit.ly/M as in Mike /BTV_cast. And that's literally everything. All of my links, anything you could possibly want to get into Beyond the Verse. And so I want to kind of segue into our first talking point. And I don't know why I have this window up. Don't need to talk about that. Okay, I'm going to share my screen for those of you on YouTube. This is it's June 7th. So this is the first episode of June. So we do have the May monthly show review. And so I'll widen this up so everybody can see this. But in 60 episodes, this is the lifespan of Beyond the Verse podcast. In 60 episodes, 15 bonus Org Night episodes, we have reached more than 65 countries, listening in over 26.4 thousand times on podcast, and watching over 36.4 thousand views on YouTube. So that's straight off of Twitter. I read that verbatim. But as you're seeing on the screen, here are all of our metrics. I'm all about transparency. There are other podcasts that I'm sure have better numbers in 1 year. Don't give two shits. It's not about performance. It's not about, hey, look at me, look at how, our numbers are increasing. This is actually about you and understanding our community. So when you respond to our emails or our Spotify poll and Q&A, when you engage with us on Twitter, this is the potential engagement or exposure that we have as a community. So we talked about podcasts, we talked about YouTube. On Twitter, we reached 1.7 thousand followers. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with 1,000 followers, but we're about to cross the 2,000 threshold. Very exciting there. I'm pretty sure we're over 1 million. We are definitely over 1 million impressions, right? So if you take the 516.4 thousand impressions from YouTube and the 390.4 thousand impressions from Twitter, to include just the 30.4K impressions from podcasts, we are easily over 1 million impressions of our show to date. That's super, super exciting, right? And then we got TikTok and Instagram. So TikTok, we're still figuring that out. I'm not going to abandon TikTok. Just need to figure out what content that needs to turn into. And then Instagram, I might as well just quit it. I say it every time we do a monthly show review, but Instagram is kind of this, I don't know, it's a lost art. Nobody grows on Instagram, and that's through deep analysis and research. It's not a platform that creators go to really grow. It's Facebook 2.0. So I don't really know if I want to even continue pursuing Instagram or not. So sharing with you as a friend, a listener, and a viewer. So thanks, everybody. I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, just want to say thank you. It means the world to me. I don't know if these numbers mean anything to you, but for me, this just means that we're doing something right. We, as in me and you, our community, we're doing something right. All right, let's do from the community. Let's get into it.
Incoming message.
Like we do at the end of every single episode, we have a Spotify Q&A and a poll. Let's go straight to the polls. I asked you, do you see value in the Invictus daily reviews provided showcasing fundraising and account increases? So last episode, we covered my beautiful mind spreadsheet about the increases of funding and the accounts due to Invictus launch week. Excuse me. And so we have 6 responses. So thank you for those who answered the poll. 1 individual said no and 5 said yes. So again, this goes back to what I said a couple minutes ago. I think as long as I'm enjoying it, I think that will translate. I think you as a listener will feed and gravitate towards that passion. If you're not into it, I totally understand it as well. There was a time before, especially before I worked at Amazon, that I didn't care about numbers or growth percentages or any of that nonsense. But here's my hot take. My hot take for this, and people get upset when I call us this, but we are all investors. If you paid $50 or if you paid 50,000, you are an investor in this game. You're an investor in the technology and what the devs are building because it's not built yet. I think that's the difference, right? You can argue that, if you just buy a game straight off the shelf, $60, $75, whatever it is, which, by the way, I just bought my son the Star Wars or the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Galaxy or Saga, whatever nonsense on the Switch, $75. Holy crud! I didn't realize boxed games have reached $75. That's insane to me, but I digress. If you're buying a game straight off the shelf, if you're buying it as a complete package, no, I don't think you're considered an investor. But with this game, like you were in early access for Baldur's Gate, I feel like that is an investment. You're investing in a production and an effort that is ongoing. Now, the caveat to that is what's the return on investment? Well, for us, it's joy, right? And I don't think that's a good investment. So I think if you get into the minutia of what an investment is and what the ROI is, and okay, we can debate that, but I consider us, for all intents and purposes and for this debate, I consider us investors because, again, this is a product of tech for a game that is not released yet. So don't know why we went on this tangent. I'll have to listen back and figure out why I did that. But we are investors. And so for me, this is why. For me, these numbers are important, right? It's crazy to think that a marketing effort that we say the WAR acronym, so win back, acquisition, retain, or retention, in a WAR effort for marketing, it's interesting to find out what's the biggest bang for their buck. And then just realizing as a consumer, you are the consumer. You're being led to the water, Now, whether or not you take a drink of that water, that's up to you. But you have to see it that way. And it's okay. It's a business. CIG's a business. Star Citizen is a business. And once you kind of grasp that, not trying to be insulting, but once you try to grasp that and realize that everything that they do is not necessarily for your enjoyment, right? It's for the community team to spin it as for your enjoyment. But at the end of the day, it's CIG needing money. And so they're producing things, they're releasing things in advantageous moments when it makes most sense to them and their marketing efforts. And then the community team takes it and words it in a way that's easier to consume. There you go. It's a business. That is the reason why I do those, the daily reviews. And then when we start doing the best in show, I'll be doing that as well for like, here's the remaining votes and here's how we can predict who's going to win each round. It's just what I do. So there's your poll for the last episode. Let's get into the Q&A. Ooh, I get to publish the last step. So when you respond to the Q&A, I just realized especially if you're on a podcast, you have no idea what I'm looking at. When I have a listener respond to the Q&A, it goes to a private field. I have to read it, make sure it's good to go. Then I have to actually publish it for it to go to, to be published. So now we have 7. We had 6, now we have 7. All right, let me share my screen for those of you on YouTube. Let's go. All right, we talked about persistent hangers last episode because we went into 323.2 and the preview of what to expect on that patch. Now, after we get through the From the Community segment, I'm going to reveal that there are many delays happening to both. Right, so .2 and 1 alpha have both been delayed. So for the unforeseeable future, I'll get into that here in a second. But we talked about persistent hangers and if it would influence your permanent residence choice. Do instant hangers change any other decision you'll make in the game? Let's go, Dakota Riley. I don't think it will change where I set my residence, but I'll be more likely to live planet side rather than moving to a station. Quick response here, 100%. I think that's by design. Now, good, bad, indifferent, we all have tried to get to an orbital station for every patch reset because it gets us away from all of the server issues, all the clutter, right? When you put, especially when like right after a server launches or a reset happens, you're putting hundreds and hundreds of people in one little tight spot. So you try to get out to an orbital station, then you move all your equipment and you try to move all your ships to this orbital station because it's a little bit further away from the flagpole, right? This is going to flip that on its head because your persistent hangers are only planet side. They're only at your primary residence. So if you're in Ors or if you're in Crusader, it's going to be at Orson. You're not going to have a persistent hanger up in Seraphim Station, right? So that is going to change the behavior. Now, these are instanced hangers. So my hope is that even though you are in Orson, because they are instanced, the frames per second, the server connectivity, hopefully, should not take a hit just because you're close or you're near or inside of Orson. Sean Donovan, quote, I think the new hangers will be convenient for factions or smaller groups by how they have expansions, and I'm interested to the direction CIG decides to take with allowing players to share hangers. I agree with you, and I'm going to respond to that last piece. I think, now, I'm trying to remember where I saw or heard this this piece, maybe from a content creator, but I'm thinking it was featured in like an Inside Star Citizen, but like having parties inside of hangars. Like I remember Authentic Young talking about it whenever she was on this podcast. But having, like, I believe that's always been the intent. It's always been the intent, and what I'm imagining is a scenario much like Elder Scrolls Online, where you're in a party, you can invite people inside of your home. I'm hoping it's kind of like that. What I don't want to have happen is you have a team established in the lobby. And let's say there's 10 of you, and Sulyce is the team lead. Well, when you jump in, everybody's in your hangar because you're the team lead. I don't want it to default to the team lead. And I don't think anybody wants to be defaulted in someone else's, hangar just because it's led by the team. So it needs to be invite only, in my opinion. It needs to be invite only regardless if you're in a party or not. But how that scales and how that experience, I was going to say user interface, but the overall experience, what that feels like in game. Because even though they're instanced hangars, Star Citizen or CIG has always said it's supposed to not feel that way. You'll never know that it's instanced. It's a straight, like when you fly into the orbital station, well, it's not. When you fly into the planet side hangars, you call on it like you do with the communications channels. You just call on your private hangar and you get assigned to it and you go into it. No different experience than anything else. It's just once you're inside, it becomes instanced. Again, how do you get friends in there? I think it's a great question, Sean. All right, so the next quote from Nick, quote, "It does not change my choice of residence, just like the looks and feels of Orison too much for that. But it will make preparations for an activity or ship easier and more interesting." Yes. Aside from decorating, aside from organizing it to make it feel your own, the greatest attribute or the greatest thing that Persistent Hangars brings to the gamer is the loading cargo and loading ships or calling on ships that are nested in other ships. 100%. I'm beating this dead horse and I will continue to beat this dead horse. But imagine a world where you take a Corsair and you call up the NERSA and you're able to put that NERSA in the Corsair in less than 30 seconds. As opposed to the current loop that's 15 minutes. and I know this. I know this because recently that's been my everyday flyer. Yes, I'm admitting to it. My everyday flyer right now is actually the Corsair. I tuck the NERSA in the back end so I have a way to always like to heal myself, right? To freshen up so I don't have to go back to an orbital station. So that loop, like on Monday, took me like 15 minutes to do. I had to fly to I think I picked Cellin. There's like a Cellin garage. I was able to land, do everything I needed to do. But again, that was a whole game session for me because I'm an adult trying to work and have kids. So yeah, that was my entire game loop, was getting that NERSA onto the Corsair. All right, Sasquatch Crumble. So I think, or Sasquatch Rumble. I think this is the first time you've responded, so welcome in. Thanks for your response. I haven't stumbled over your name before, so I know you're new. Quote, "I always pick Hurston as my home base due to the central location in Stanton. But with Persistent Hangars, I'm looking at New Babbage due to the aesthetic of the landing zone and planet." Not a lot to respond to on this one. Night and day. Hurston is the complete antithesis of New Babbage. Complete opposite. And I cannot agree with you more. The most beautiful system in Star Citizen is New Babbage, right? Or Microtech, right? It is a gorgeous, gorgeous system. The moons are less interesting. I think the moons in Crusader are more interesting to me, like yellow with the massive asteroid ring around it. But I think New Babbage or Microtech, like that main planet, is absolutely stunning. And that's of course where all the animals are, right? Like your Maricopians, awesome cave systems. They exist elsewhere, but like you're gonna find most of the new tech, the river systems. You're gonna find most of that in Microtech. So full agreement. Call me Teach. Again, I think you're also a first time responder. So welcome in. Thanks again. Quote, "I don't think people understand how much this patch is going to negatively impact inventory management. My suggestion, personal cargo boxes for your items. Avoid the kiosks at all costs." Honestly, I'm actually in agreement here. Now, even though I just said freight elevators and loading up ships with cargo, like that should be a lot easier from a macro perspective. But I think right now with the inventory management, let me just tell you all a quick story. And I think we have time for this because there's not a lot of news to cover this week. So let me just tell you a quick story. So the other day, I pull out the whole C, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna increase my quantum drive because it is slow as shit. The whole C is slow, and so if you want to make that a game loop where you're going from orbital station to orbital station delivering cargo, you need to upgrade your quantum drive, 100%. Well, that's problematic. So I wanted to go for the Echo. The Echo is probably the most efficient quantum drive for a size 3 or for a whole C. And so that is found right now, that's found at Area 18. That's planet side. So you can fly into Area 18, you can land a non-whole C ship, right? So I think I took I took the Corsair. So I took the Corsair, flew into Area 18, landed. I claimed the whole C so that it would be virtually at Area 18. I go to Dumpers Depot. I believe that's what it's called. Dumpers Depot. I bought the Echo. Then I applied that Echo onto the whole C. But then you can't call the whole C. You can't call it planet side. You have to call it from an orbital station. So I was like, well, okay, well, shit. So I got back in the Corsair, but now I've got what I think is the Kama quantum drive, KAMA. I think it's the Kama quantum drive that it replaces. So I'm like, well, I've got that at Area 18's, area now. I want to put it at, Seraphim Station. I want to move it, but I can't load it into my Corsair because my Corsair, even though it physically could fit, I can't put it on my ship because the SCU isn't large enough. So if you're not familiar right now with 323, it just came out where you have to physicalize your cargo. You can't just take like a C2 like you used to and just load up your entire inventory from a patch reset. You need to actually put things into boxes. You need to actually put things into storage. Well, even though the Corsair has plenty of space to physically put that box or the Kama quantum drive, I don't have a container to fit that in. So now I've got the Kama quantum drive stuck at Area 18 with really no way of getting it out unless I pay more money to get like a 32 SCU container, and then I can do it, maybe. But like there's an inventory issue, period. Like gamers are having to relearn how to manage inventory. And so I think right when we're going to get comfortable with this, now they're going to introduce this. They're going to introduce the inventory management with the kiosks. Okay, I mean, learn something new again. We're going to continue trying to adapt and overcome these changes. But just right now, it's super difficult to figure out the hows of getting inventory between two different places. And it's now expensive to do so. If I wanted to move all of my stuff from Crusader or from Orison to Seraphim Station, I would have to spend money, a lot of money, on 32 SCU containers or a crap load of smaller SCU boxes. It's just a lot to manage. My hope, though, for Call Me Teach, my hope is that the kiosk will actually make it easier, where I'm physically at a place and I can just click on a couple items and have it move. We will see. We will see when it comes, how it will actually feel in game. Lots of questions, lots of curiosity around how this actually will play out, but it's right around the corner. We'll get into that timeline here in a second. It's right around the corner. All right, 2 more quotes. Heisei says, I choose Area 18 for the atmosphere, and to me, the instanced hangars will provide a lot more value to that landing zone for owners of ground vehicles eventually. Yes, I think this plays into the fact that you can put ground vehicles on your ship really from any planet side location now, right? There's a garage in like Lorville as one example. There's a garage in Lorville where you theoretically can get into a ship, fly up, fly across Lorville, land on the outskirts, and there is a place, like garage, there's a ground garage, to load up your ground vehicle. It also exists in New Babbage. You fly out of the spaceport, you kind of go down before you hit the lake, and you can call your ground vehicles. But even as convenient as that is, it still takes a long ass time. Well, you sure as shit can't do it in Orison. You're levitating up in the gas planet. So no, you can't call, and you won't be able to call ground assets in Orison unless you do so in your personal hangar. Last quote from Josh Bradshaw, quote, "I don't think hangars will change my mind. Area 18 has always been home. I'm thinking it'll lead me to plan more carefully in my ventures. I've always enjoyed logistics. This just adds another step." Yes. Lots of Area 18s. I'm actually really surprised. Area 18 is super convenient. I'll give it that. Everything's really close to where you pop into the game, right? So the habs, there's a lot of shops, a lot of convenience there. So I can agree to Area 18 being a good second option to Orison. So a lot of the sentiment, personal hangars won't impact where we decide to call home. But I do think it'll prevent us, in a good way, it'll prevent us from pursuing orbital stations as a primary residence. All right, we are still on from the community, and that's fine, because we're going to go through the news very quickly. But we're to the quotes now, or to the polls. Excuse me. Again, we only asked one poll, and this poll got 753 views, 144 votes. And it goes back to my story with the Hull C. So as I was shopping for the Hull C, you really have three options, right? You can go for the most speed, or the max speed. You can go for the max distance, or you can go for efficiency. And those are your three options. I did have an other comment, below or whatever, but max speed, max distance, efficiency. Before we get into the results, for those of you on podcast, before we get into the results, here's my take, right? At the end of the day, when it's Star Citizen 1.0 and we have, 2, if not more, systems to play in, efficiency is going to make the most sense. You're going to want the most efficiency, right? That's output divided by input. So it might not be the fastest, it might not go the furthest, but it's the best bang for your buck. That's going to be the end state for me, especially in a logistics organization like Sole Provision. That is going to be the main effort, because you're going to be hopping from system to system, and you're going to want to be able to do so without always having to refuel. But in this current state, 323.1, in this current state of one system, really the only thing that matters is speed. So it's going to be your military grade A, your TS1, TS2, TS3. These are going to be your most advantageous. And that's actually how the poll ended up. So 47.9% voted for max speed. 33.3% said efficiency. 16% said max distance. And 2.8% said other. So super interesting. I don't always want to ask questions about, hey, here's what I did in game. How do you feel about this decision I had to make? But I think this is interesting. I just now started really focusing on upgrading ships. It's just, I think historically, you would upgrade a ship, it would blow up, and you'd have to re-upgrade it. It was very expensive to keep your ship upgraded. So I just never bothered with it. I'm also not a huge bounty hunter. The ship combat, like that it's fun. It's not my main game loop. So I've never really had to focus on improvements. So maybe that's why. But I think when I'm getting into cargo hauling, which is coming in 323.2, when I get into cargo hauling, really utilizing the Hull C, hopefully that means the whole Delta and the whole Echo is right around the corner. That'd be amazing. But when those come out, this is what I'll be doing. I will be doing the Space Trucker game loop. 100%. That's why my organization is based off of logistics. I can see myself upgrading, the power. I can see myself upgrading, obviously, the jump drive, the quantum drive. Like, these are all super important things, as you're going to be needing those more so than turrets, right? I can see, like, if the whole C, if they start introducing better tractor beams, I can see that being a thing that I would upgrade. I think the whole C has like 4 tractor beams. It's insane. But that'd be the other thing I would upgrade. But again, it has not driven a lot of what I've been doing. So, okay. We are now done with From the Community segment. But before we get into This Week in Star Citizen, just quickly, I wanted to, let me hit refresh. I want to give you all the latest and the greatest. Stand by. All right, so the latest and greatest is 14 hours ago. Let me go ahead and share my screen for those of you on YouTube. The latest for 323.1 alpha. So like I told you, we will talk briefly about 1 alpha and .2. Here's the latest. 14 hours ago, they actually redlit the PTU build due to a new server crash that would have made it a worse experience, and they're going to try again today. So here's the deal. They've been putting Xenothreat into the PTU for the last, I think we're at a week now, if not more than a week. And they'll try it, and there's a point at time where it breaks. Now, 2 or 3 days ago, the messages I got from the community that have been playing this, they've loved it. They haven't had really that negative of an experience. But then here recently, they started saying that the vehicles wouldn't spawn, and then it just went downhill from there. Major server crashes, and it just kind of compounded. So I think that's where we're at here. This is going to require a brand new build. That'll probably happen. Today's Friday, so it'll probably happen now for a weekend test. That's what they've been doing. Last weekend was a Xenothreat test. So they're probably going to release a new build today, test it this weekend, and hopefully, next week, we can see Xenothreat and Jumptown and then .1 alpha, officially released in the live unit or the live PU. So, yeah, it's frustrating. It's super frustrating, but like I said on my socials, let it cook. Like, absolutely let it cook. And this gets into the main conversation for today and why I called this Star Citizen, like how we knew it, right? All right, I'm going to get a little dramatic here. Maybe it's where I'm at. Maybe it's where I'm at in life. Maybe it's post-military and I'm comfortable at Amazon, got 2 kids. I'm going to say it again. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. Once this game is in 1.0 and it's released, whether you're a white knight or a salty gamer or somewhere in between, this is just going to become a Baldur's Gate. Who's playing Baldur's Gate anymore? It got Game of the Year. One of the greatest games, I would say, of our generation, and I sincerely mean that. Story told and all of that. It's no one's talking about it anymore. It's done. And maybe because it's a story. Once you're done with the story, it's done. But I think Grand Theft Auto Online, I think Red Dead Redemption Online, in my community, in my circles, no one's talking about it. Star Citizen is destined to be that. Like, it's going to be out for a couple years. We might really enjoy it, right? But at some point, right around the corner, however long that is, no one's going to care about Star Citizen anymore. It's going to be old news. And so I'm at a point where I want this to take as long as possible. The hype, the energy, the looking forward to citizen cons, the looking forward to ships, right? Like, there's something fun about that. It's like anticipating Christmas, but even like December 24th, like Christmas Eve, even that night, I start getting a little bummed out because it's here. It's here and it's done. Christmas happens, it becomes more about my kids and their enjoyment. But once we're eating lunch on Christmas, 365 days left until the next Christmas. And I've said it before, like this whole train analogy of like, we're on this train, there's many stops, but we continue on the train. At some point, we've ridden the entire train. We've never gotten off the train. We've never fully enjoyed life, and we're on our deathbed. And that is the dramatic part. We're talking about a video game here, but I think there's like a life lesson. We're at a point where we're just consumers. And I'm part of this, so don't think I'm talking down at you. I'm part of this, but we're consumers, and we're obsessed with being consumers. There are games that would die just to have the Aurora ship experience, to be able to call a ship, to be able to get onto the Aurora, even though it's small as shit and difficult to do anything in. You can walk in it, sit in the cock seat. I did it again from episode 1. You can sit in the cockpit, the pilot seat, and just a great overall experience. Fly around, explore. There are games that would kill for that. But everybody, including myself, is bitching and moaning about the Idris, the Polaris, the Javelin, Bonnie Merchantman. They're just not happy. F8C comes out, it's exciting for a couple of weeks, and people don't give a shit anymore. It's more about the ticket sales and how that was, convoluted, right? You have the F7 Alpha come out. Okay, great. That was awesome for Invictus launch week. People flew it for a little bit. No one's talking about it anymore. So the Idris is going to come out. The Polaris is going to come out before, the end of the year. We're going to be flying the Polaris very soon. Okay, old news. Where's my Bonnie Merchantman? It's killing me right now to kind of play both roles. I'm a content creator. I create a podcast. I get into the notes, the testing notes, and I get into all the excitement of the dev piece, but I'm also a damn gamer. I also play the game, and it is frustrating as shit. I feel you when you're inside of the game, you're trying to do something and you waste 30 minutes, you fill out 250,000 UEC of cargo on a whole sea just for it to disappear for no reason. I feel the pain, but who the F cares? Restart the game, get back out there, do some bounty hunting missions, do some merc missions, get your money back up in an hour. You can probably make 250,000 in an hour if you're doing the right stuff. Big freaking deal. But I'm responding in this way because of how much the community is shitting on CIG right now because of 323.1 alpha and 323.2. Let it cook. Let it cook. Because they're damned if they do, and they're damned if they don't. If they release it now and it's broken as shit, you're going to hear the same yelling and crying. But if they wait, and they wait until it's perfect, people are going to say timelines. CIG doesn't understand timelines. They don't care. It's a scam. It's exhausting. This whole reaction, this whole sentiment is exhausting. And again, I'm not sure I'm agnostic of that. I'm not sure that I'm absolved of any of that responsibility because I'm a podcaster. So I'm sure I'm contributing to one side of that conversation. But it's just exhausting. Try to enjoy the ride. Go pick a chill mission. Just do it. Do a baby delivery mission and just enjoy the view. Just enjoy what made you come to this game in the first place. Try. 323.1 alpha is going to be here soon, eventually. 323.2, maybe 2 or 3 weeks from now. We'll be in July, and we'll be talking 4.0 very soon. Okay. There's my rant. All right, everybody. Let's talk about This Week in Star Citizen. All right, here we go. From the article. CitizenCon 2954 is less than 5 months away. The initial reception to this year's event has been record-breaking, and there's no doubt this will be the largest Star Citizen gathering to date. With only about 100 tickets left before we're fully sold out, and no plans to replenish stock due to building capacity limits, so now is the time to secure a spot before there's no spots left to fill. As we've gone deeper into planning this year's big weekend, we've decided not to proceed with the Friday Night Gala, initially announced as a limited availability event. Instead, we are channeling all of our resources and energy into delivering the best CitizenCon yet. But fear not. The community bar citizen coordinators are already planning fun events for nearly every night of CitizenCon week. Keep an eye on barcitizen.sc for details. So what does that mean for those who spent money on the VIP experience or the premium ticket? I mean, I know there's other things that come with the premium ticket, but one of the main reasons to get the premium ticket is access to the Friday Night Gala. So I wonder, I haven't seen any messaging on them compensating the premium ticket holders, but back to the article. The Invictus Launch Week celebrations have now concluded. This year's event introduced the utilitarian Argo MPV tractor and the life-saving RSI Ursa medevac, alongside two surprises with the new Aegis Firebird and the Drake Ironclad. We hope you enjoyed this year's event and want to thank everyone who visited the expo. Last week's roadmap update committed the following cards to the Alpha 323.2, which is item banks, freight elevators, new cargo and hauling missions, and personal instanced hangars. This upcoming update packs a lot of fundamental mechanics into our core gameplay. What are you most excited about? Lore fans will also have enjoyed learning about the 5 Vandal controlled systems and so much in our latest Galactopedia update. All right, now let's see what's going on this week. Here's the bullet points. Monday, we have the contest Show Your Color celebration. Tuesday, we have the June subscriber comlink, which we will get into here literally in a couple seconds. Wednesday, we will end the podcast on the Star Citizen monthly report. Next episode, we'll be talking the Squadron 42 monthly report, as we have done in the past. Thursday, so a couple of days ago, last night, the cosplay contest application went live over on Spectrum. Quickly, just go to Spectrum, go to the announcements tab, and that's where the cosplay contest application exists. And then today, after this episode of us recording, the Star Citizen Live Game Dev Concept Ships with Alberto Petronio will air. And so concept ships, if you want to know anything about what I said during my rant, you're going to see the worst of the community come out in those comments about concept ships and due dates and times. Unfortunately, that's not a prediction. That's literally what's going to happen. So it happens every time we talk ships. If there was a team on CIG I would not want to be a part of, it would not be the ships team. So there you go. All right, first and foremost, let's get into the June 2024 subscriber promotions. And this is actually why I decided to use this episode to kind of preview Alien Week for next week. So June 12th is Citizen Day. Hold on, before I just lie to you. First Contact Day, good Lord. I was like, that's not right. Citizen Day is... Okay. When you know this game so well that when you say something, you're like, it didn't feel right. Okay, First Contact Day is June 12th. That's the middle, I believe it's Wednesday of next week. So you can expect Alien Week to go down next week. And so that's why a lot of people are thinking the 1 alpha patch has got to hit either before or on Alien Week, because you got to release kind of a hotfix or patch or whatever for Alien Week content. So hopefully that means next week is everything. But in 2023, the June subscriber promotions, if you remember, were those knives. It was the knife set, and then the ship to fly was the Prowler. So it kind of hinted around, or it was based around Alien Week. So the colors were very Banu. It was the Banu colors, very bright, colorful. And then the Prowler obviously is an alien ship. Well, that's not what we got in June of 2024. You got these very, very expensive hazmat suits. Very expensive hazmat suits. And I think that's kind of the end take that I have for these promotions. But first, let's get into the promos. First off, they look badass, right? So good work on the art, good work on how everything is put together. They look really, really good. So let's get into actually what these are. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the list. All this other narrative stuff, I think we're kind of beyond that as a listener, as a viewer. So we're just going to get into what these are. So for the Centurion, the Dark Biohazard. So you're looking here, it's mainly kind of a dark gray with yellow highlights. And they will also be able to fly. Is this the Gladiator? Hold on. I believe this is the Gladiator. Yeah, Vehicles of the Month. Centurion is the Gladiator, and the Imperator is the Eclipse. So Centurion gets the dark Biohazard. Again, mostly dark gray with yellow highlights. Has like a mole system on like the left shoulder. I think it's a Molly system on the left shoulder. But again, it looks really, really, really good. You got a D-ring on the waist. It's great. A lot of detail, a lot of attention to detail. So I like the overall aesthetics. Don't think it's worth the money, but here we go. The Imperator got the high vis biohazard, and it basically flips the color scheme. So this is predominantly yellow with dark, like black or dark gray highlights. So if you want dark with yellow highlights, Centurion. If you want yellow with dark highlights, Imperator. And again, the Imperator flies the Eclipse. And now we've got the Store. The Store, I actually think the Store one's kind of ugly. And I don't necessarily know why. It's like half and half. So the right side of your body is dark. The left side of your body is like tiger striped. It's like stripes of yellow and dark. I'm saying dark brown, but I don't know. It looks like a mud color. Don't know what that color is, but it's strange to me. It doesn't have like a rhyme or reason, right? So again, the right side of your body is solid, and the left side of your body is tiger striped yellow and whatever the dark brown is. But here's my last takeaway. They're over $12. $12. That's more expensive than some of the armor sets. And so I don't necessarily know why they would make these subscriber items so expensive. Again, if you're an Imperator, you're getting both, right? You're getting both of the biohazard suits. But if you wanted the last one, the Warning, it's called the Warning, you're paying $12.50. Insanity to me. I would not spend $12.50 on basically a flight suit. Yeah, just me. All right. All right. The Centurion members fly the Gladiator. The Imperator subscribers fly the Gladiator and the Eclipse. The Eclipse continues to be one of my favorite ships in the game. But again, nothing about this said Alien Week. Nothing. This actually says more about Pyro, sort of, kind of. Although Pyro's not really hazardous, like toxic waste. Pyro is more like the sun flares or the solar flares, right? It's more about the dangerous environments, not necessarily about the high or the hazard environments. I don't know. I could be completely wrong. I don't really think Pyro either. I don't really know the theme of June, but I would have expected there to be something more alien oriented. And so that led me into, okay, well, we are getting into Alien Week next week, right? First contact is June 12th. Wednesday of next week. So I wanted to do kind of what I did in the preview for Invictus launch week and go to 2023's page and share with you what happened at least last year. So here's 2023's Alien Week website for those of you on YouTube. But if you remember, we got a lot of paint jobs, and it was the purple, pinks, blues that I was corrected. I don't like the colors. Like, it's way too much for a spaceship. But many people responded to me saying, well, that's the Banu way of things. Banu does the colorful schemes. Okay, that's fine. But I wonder what they're going to do this year. because they already did the rainbow colors. That's what we're looking at right now. So I'm curious what the alien colors will be for 2024. But more than likely, you'll see a lot of paint jobs. You had a commercial that was very... I think this is what sparked my reaction. It was just very comical, very... you're talking about the death of Vandal and humans right in the middle of wars. And you got this really comical kind of play on everything. It just didn't feel authentic or genuine. But again, I was corrected, and I was told that's the Bonnie way of doing things, right? But here we go. So we had community contests called Close Encounters. We did have the Banu Tholo, right? That was given out, and how to get it. You got them from going to Bar Citizens. Out of This World programming. I think this is also where they launched, if I'm not mistaken, somebody hold me to this, but I'm pretty sure the Sulyce came out as a starter ship. That was a surprise from last year. And the Santok. I believe those two ships were two surprises from last year. So one of the questions I'll ask in my Spotify Q&A is like, what do you think is going to be hinted at, surprised, released for this Alien Week, right? And please don't say Bonnie Merchant Man. Don't do it. Don't get your hopes up. don't think the BMM is anywhere close. And I'm not trying to be salty. I think it's just being realistic. But I'm curious. Like, if you think there's another starter ship, like how would anyone have predicted the Sulyce? I didn't see that coming. It was no program notes or anything for it. So we are in for probably some surprises. I'm curious what you think those are. But yeah, so I hope you saw value in that. To predict where you're going, you've got to look back at where you've been. Not to sound like prolific or anything or prophetic. But I think that's a good indicator. Like if you're a content creator or if you're up and coming with Star Citizen, you could start looking in the past to get kind of a hint at what could happen. However, CIG is notorious for doing the complete opposite. For instance, looking at, June's subscriber flare last year and seeing alien stuff and thinking, well, it's going to be alien stuff this year. Nope. Not even close. So it's a hit or miss. I like looking at the events from last year because you can at least put things in buckets. You can at least see that there's going to be paints, that there's going to be community contests, and kind of get ready for that piece. All right, let's get into the last segment of this podcast, and it is the PU monthly report. I think there's a couple of fun tidbits to share here, but we're going to go through this really quickly, and then we'll call it a podcast. And hopefully you've enjoyed your walk with us on episode 61. Welcome to May's PU monthly report. With Alpha 323 Live on our team from around the globe. Wow. With Alpha 323 Live, our team from around the globe spent the month polishing features, squashing bugs, and progressing with the wealth of new content coming in 323.2, 4.0, and beyond. Read on for the details. Let's go. AI features. Following the launch of Alpha 323, AI features supported the upcoming point patch and feature releases. Specifically, they work towards consistent behaviors across different combat scenarios, ensuring that AI characters react in believable ways, no matter what situation they're in. The team began by improving and unifying perception reactions, improving cover use in different scenarios, and making a holistic evaluation of all combat elements to ensure they work as intended. This is particularly important with the recent improvements to the hostility system. For example, if an AI comes across two others fighting and they are friendly with both, doing nothing is not a valid response. As the first pass implementation for Alpha 323, the AI will run and cover when this situation arises, though this isn't ideal and will be improved upon for an upcoming release. AI tech. Last month, AI Tech supported Alpha 3.23 with bug fixing and optimizations. This included adding new metrics to better understand the size of Pathfinder requests on live builds, navigation tile generation requests, and the number of active NPCs and voids. Improvements were made to the functionality of NPCs, pushing trolleys and using elevators alongside updates to behaviors for elevator use. Smoother animations when NPCs move away from trolleys and improved functionality for NPCs parking trolleys were implemented as well. AI Tech also began work to allow NPCs to understand when cover is being destroyed or when parts of a usable are being destroyed. This will prevent NPCs from attempting to find or use unsuitable cover. For ship AI, the team continued making improvements and fixing bugs related to following splines and back strafing. Animation. In May, gameplay animation focused work on numerous creatures, including the unreleased Quasi-Grazer, or the Space Cow. Character art team completed the high poly phase for 2 specialist armors and continued updating the utility armor. A new heavy specialist armor began development too. Character art also supported requests for the character customizer, while the hair team started work on new hairstyles for future releases. Progress was also made on new creatures. I love reading things like progress on new creatures. Maybe it's just the space cows, but maybe there's more. That'll be exciting. The ship art team delivered the Aegis Retaliator's cargo and bomber modules, ensuring they met gold standard requirements. The Argo MPUV tractor was also completed in early May. Elsewhere, LOD 0, that's level of detail 0, was completed for the RSI Zeus Mark II. That's important. That is important. Elsewhere, Load 0 was completed for the RSI Zeus Mark II. That means that's really, really damn close to being released. With the team delivering a significant amount of work to dramatically increase the detail in all areas of the ship. For example, lighting across the entire ship has been designed to bring out the volume and highlight details, while animation passes were done across all moving parts, with many receiving secondary motion to communicate a sense of weight. The next stage is a wear pass and completion of the ship's damaged states. Material passes were also done to help unify the look and feel of a new RSI ship in the future. I wonder what that is. Finally, for ship art, 3 other ships entered the white box stage. Honestly, it's probably just the Polaris. Sorry. Material passes were also done to help unify the look and feel of new RSI ships in the future. They're probably talking like just in general. Like you usually recycle material within like the same merchant or the same developer of ships. So they might just be talking about general material being like copy and pasted in future RSI ships. Because I'm pretty sure after the Zeus is the Polaris and maybe the Perseus would be like next year. But I think they're talking about just general material. All right, I usually skip over the community. Again, no insult to the community team. That's right in our face all the time through Twitter, through my podcast. We're always talking community. So going straight down to core gameplay. This is huge. It's always the longest, or most of the time it's always the longest. Pay attention as I die. All right, core gameplay. The core gameplay pillar spent May closing out tasks and bug fixing for Alpha 3.23 and 3.23.1. While part of the team focused on the final touches for the cargo feature, the majority continued working on gameplay features for Alpha 4.0 and beyond. In May, the core gameplay pillar completed a significant amount of work on the multi-tool refactor plan for Alpha 4.0. This will provide a more streamlined experience by putting the tool's primary attachment action on the left mouse button and the secondary action on the right. Planning for the remaining multi-tool refactor work, such as an updated UI and battery consumption, was also completed. For biome accumulation, the team completed further Squadron 42 porting work and scoped out how the feature will integrate into the weather system. Charge and Drain also continued through pre-production and will now utilize the resource network, support multiplayer, and the ability to charge and drain distortion damage from ship components. Quantum Travel is currently being reviewed to assess any aspects that need to be made server meshing compatible beyond issues observed during tech preview tests. Support for the Arena Commander's engineering mode was provided to allow items to be repaired once they reached 0 health. May also saw the core gameplay pillar improving various profiling tools that assesses the performance of characters, vehicles, and interactable entities. This will provide more and better quality data. Locomotion improvements for NPCs performing sharp turns were completed, which will allow characters and creatures to switch direction more smoothly. Work required to adapt the inventory system to server meshing was scoped out, as it will require a rework of its backend to scale appropriately. That's more than likely the issue that's happening right now with 1 alpha beyond to 4.0, because we're in the inventory system issues and obviously server meshing being 3.23. So that's probably where we're at right now. I'm taking a full guess. All right, back to the article. The initial version of jump drive failure events was implemented in May. Now when a ship's jump drive is disabled or damaged, the player will be forced out of the tunnel, which correctly aligns with the exit point in the destination star system. Further improvements to the debug tool for jump point gameplay were implemented too. For engineering gameplay, the team implemented power tools, which allow the streamlined power management of grouped items like weapons and thrusters. The resource network was enabled by default in the main Star System development branch, which ensures all teams can work with it and integrate their features or content with it. For transit, the team continued general release support for Alpha 3.23 in the upcoming cargo and personal hangar update. Scope, technical, and planning discussions concluded for the transit refactor, which is now in active development. Estimates and scheduling were completed for the remaining radar and scanning tasks, including deliverable targets. Team members supporting the patch release concluded their work and moved to supporting radar and scanning. Work was done on the objects of interest mechanic, which will allow designers to set up objects within the PU or Squadron 42 with various parameters and a special scan highlight. A special material was also applied when an object is occluded so that it shows one material when within line of sight and another when obstructed. The team also added a fading effect for highlighted objects based on distance. Additionally, work was done on including organization information in FPS scan data, while new SFX, special effects, was added when attempting to ping while the ability is on cooldown. The team also completed checks between the PU and Squadron 42 streams, raising differences so the team can continue to port features from the Squadron 42 feature set. Finally, for radar and scanning, the team activated FPS radar and other experimental radar features across Arena Commander. These systems will be reassessed closer to the release of Alpha 4.0 for potential preview via Arena Commander. Like I told you, this is a long section. For Arena Commander, the team concluded work on the first version of custom lobbies, which went live in Alpha 3.23. Alongside general bug fixing, they also added team assignments, allowing players to arrange their teams in the lobby before entering the game. Support was also provided for the Gravlev race leaderboards. Initial work was completed on the first pass of a new EVA-only map for FPS game modes, with playtests scheduled for the upcoming weeks. Additionally, the team began marking up all Arena Commander locations with the room system so they're compatible with radar. The Good Doctor was completed, with the rest expected to be finished in the coming weeks. The new front-end style was fully approved and began implementation. Polish was complete on new animations, and the first example of a brand takeover was approved using Drake. This will be used to guide the teams in creating more takeover designs for future events. 2 new strike teams were created to focus on 2 modes, one of which is FPS Horde. For FPS Horde, the game mode and initial setup were completed alongside the deliverable scope discussion and task breakdown. The primary goal of this mode is to provide developers with a fast, easy, and reliable way to iterate on the development of spawn closets, create inhuman AI, and FPS radar. The team will assess the game mode closer to Alpha 4.0 on the feasibility of introducing it as a publicly playable experimental mode. Additionally, the team worked on several quality of life initiatives for developers, including new vehicle control manager debugging. They also added dummy players to Arena Commander, which allowed the developers to test scenarios with actors that mimic players. For example, this was first used to reproduce issues with team balancing in the scoreboard UI when a high number of players connected. Previously, this would have required either multiple developers or multiple clients. Finally, the team resolved a major issue with team balancing and spawning for Alpha 323.2 and assisted in the resolution of a critical issue with analytics, including the creation of a new gameplay analytics dashboard. Further progress was made on the mission system refactor, including the implementation of the contract generator, the querying of active and completed missions from the mission service, and a rework of the mission sharing flow. The team also updated mission entities to support streaming and refactored the mission system to use both the mission broker and contract template systems. The data structures required to refactor missions were provided to the mission design and content teams too. Further support was given to mission design for the updated delivery contract system that interacts with the upcoming freight elevators too. And there is an image here. Hold on, I'm gonna get a drink and then respond to this image. Oh man. Alrighty. If you ever talked for like an hour, hour and a half, are we going on 2 hours? No, we're not going on 2 hours. Good Lord. You get that tickle in your throat? Yeah, that's like killing me right now. So this is like the first image that we've gotten about the freight manager. So we see the freight manager on the left is the elevator, and on the right is the warehouse. So moving items from the warehouse to elevator and vice versa. You can see how they plan on rolling this out. There was a comment on social media that Nikau, I'm so sorry I keep butchering the name, a CIG community manager, responded to saying like this isn't the end state. Like there's a stack all button, or there's a stack all functionality that's not going to initially be released, or it might not be available here. So I would not take this and say like this is what we're going to expect, but this at least is the workings, at least the skeleton of what to expect with the freight manager between elevator and warehouse. So kind of exciting to see that. Gameplay features continued with the closeout of freight elevators, storage access kiosks, instance and personal hangars, and commodity trading updates. The UI flow is currently being updated to provide a more streamlined experience when managing the warehouse inventory and moving items via the freight elevator. Items like weapons, armor, and furniture can now be brought up too. Stacks of items can now be split in the storage access and freight elevator kiosk UI, and filters for item categories were implemented. On to the economy team. Last month, the effort versus reward algorithm was documented, which enabled the economy team to determine the technicalities of implementing the mission system refactor. Once live, mission rewards will be based on time and difficulty to complete. Part of this involved establishing sensible time estimates for hauling missions and finalizing the reward balance for the Copian and Merrick missions. They also supported Invictus Launch Week and the existing cargo missions. A design for the refactor of the shop system is underway and will provide more flexibility for trading commodities in item shopping. Progress was also made on an algorithm to determine the base prices of commodities. Interactables, and there's a lot of pictures here. So this first box, last month, liquid carrying cargo containers were worked on, with all sizes moving from white box to final. Here's another box. A destructible generator was also made for search and destroy missions. The devs are currently working up to final with separate pieces that will detach upon the destruction. More boxes. All right, lighting. Lighting spent time finalizing work on instanced hangars. Once complete, they kicked off new content for Alpha 4.0. They also began the look dev stage on a new cave archetype. Exciting. Locations. May saw the landing zone team fixing bugs for instance hangars before moving on to mandates for Alpha 4.0, including crafting the remaining stations for Pyro. The organics team continued iterating on new biomes. Mission design. Through May, mission design continued working on cargo missions, specifically polishing the abandon flow. This is used when a player decides they no longer want to play the mission. For example, if they have already picked up a load, the contract will give them an allotted time to deliver it to a closer location and takes less of a reputation hit. If the player doesn't deliver the cargo in the allotted time, it will be marked as stolen. Planning was also done for the mission system refactor, which is required for server meshing. This will also bring the processes and pipelines used by the team up to date to ensure everything is aligned with the current standards. Future content plans are underway, with some actively being built. Mission design also aligned with tech design on their deliverables to see if more of their upcoming gameplay can be utilized. Pyro-based repair missions are being actively designed. These involve replacing components containing radiation and power management via charge and drain. Narrative. May kicked off with a flurry of activity for the narrative team. As part of the scoping of responsibilities for Star Citizen 1.0, they looked into taking a larger role in the oversight and maintenance of the social AI in the universe. This includes reviewing and adjusting existing civilian behaviors so the personalities of the various locations and landing zones come through. The team is also prototyping new behavior types that will appear throughout some upcoming locations, as well as previously established ones. This led to initiatives to develop vertical slices of social spaces to test out a variety of larger scale mechanics, such as day-night schedules, updates to the vendor-bartender behavior, and some mission providers in a contained space to make sure they're providing the desired content before expanding. As part of 1.0 development, further work was done on the location stories for the major landing zones, with team members working with design to tailor the story to the gameplay. These missions will provide exciting opportunities for players to embark on adventures that embellish local storylines. The team also continued to support upcoming patches by providing narrative content for some of the upcoming mission modules, providing additional in-fiction names and descriptions to items, and working with the core gameplay teams on future mechanics. On the website, the narrative team posted a Whitley's Guide to the Hercules and a new batch of Galactopedia updates. Online technology. If you can tell, I'm going fast now. In May, the online services team focused on wrapping up the social services backend refactor, which will improve the performance and scalability of social features, including chat, friends, and groups. It will also allow the service to handle more concurrent users and requests and help the team to add new features more easily in the future. The team also spent a significant amount of time helping to stabilize Alpha 3.23 by triaging issues and bug fixing, including 12 critical and 24 major bugs. Additionally, they began working on potential Alpha 4.0 release features, such as the mission system refactor, the marker system refactor, and the player trade feature in support of server meshing. Do we currently have a player trade feature? I don't think we do. We can send money. Between players, but the trade, if I'm not mistaken, the trade functionality is very wonky. Like you have to put an item into a publicly shared storage container, or you have to drop it on the ground and have somebody else pick it up. So that's actually really exciting. That's exciting that they're working on player trade features. Okay. The research and development team supports for Alpha 3.23 continued throughout May for volumetric cloud rendering, stochastic, Catmull ROM texture filtering, good lord, was implemented for the new half-res render mode upsampler. The number of ray marching steps now also scales with the scene depth to improve performance in scenes with near-distance occluders, buildings, cockpit, terrain, etc. Moreover, progress continued on the temporal render mode. All confidence metrics and transmittance filtering received further tweaks and improvements. A first draft of the code was submitted for internal use. Tech design. Tech design supported multiple areas of development for upcoming release patches, including resolving bugs related to creatures, interactables, cargo hangars, and item banks, weapons, and performance issues. Additionally, the team were involved in a variety of initiatives for gameplay-related systems, internal tools, and workflows. For example, they added the ability for mission designers to change AI pilots' skill levels depending on the mission, affecting their accuracy. They also outlined design requirements for the transit system refactor and code syncing for the design team. Tech design spent time setting up test levels, harvestables, and the spawning system for upcoming creatures, and began to work on interaction improvements for kiosk screens. Work continued on a new location distribution tool, with May's work involving designing the initial rule set for location placements and improvements to workflow and aligning with other teams on the next steps. Progress was also made on internal scripting tools, with the team syncing with coders to slow workflows to help the designers improve the user experience. UI. The Montreal-based UI team worked on a variety of mandates in May, including tasks for cargo, ensuring all visual elements were polished and any bugs were thoroughly fixed. They also collaborated closely with the core gameplay pillar on the resource network and jump points. Meanwhile, the UK team continued updating the heads-up displays, or HUD, across multiple ships to improve their functionality and aesthetics. 2 more sections. Like other teams, the visual effects team put the finishing touches on their work for the Alpha 3.23 patch, fixing last-minute bugs and polishing effects where safe to do so. VFX also completed effects passes on several new vehicles, including for thrusters and damage. Work also began on jump point effects. These have existed as prototypes for a while, but the team focused on getting the effects fully functional, working closely with the VFX programmers and the feature team. And last, web platform. The web platform teams concentrated on preparing for the anticipated traffic surges during Invictus launch week. To support Alpha 3.23 and Invictus launch week, they established a special support process to ensure prompt incident response. The system services team also planned and tested the platform's automated scaling schedule to handle the expected traffic waves effectively. May saw the launcher team focusing on version 2.0.1. This is currently in development and will be released in the upcoming weeks. The team have been working hard to address issues with authentication, error handling, and other bugs that were reported in Launcher 2.0. These improvements will result in a more stable and reliable experience for users. Some of the key elements of the next version are improved error handling and a more intuitive UI with better performance. Issues involving expired sessions in 3001 or 30Ks and 2Ks or 2000 errors were fixed as well. Workarounds and troubleshooting guides were also added to the RSI knowledge base. Always a lot to read. Always a lot to read, and I'm happy to do so. So, thank y'all so much for hanging around for episode 61. So much to talk about. Not necessarily in news. Not a lot happened last week, but so much to talk about, just general conversation. And I'm glad you were here for it. Thank you for the engagement. Thank you for listening. Their continued support for the Beyondiverse podcast, like we discussed in the May monthly show review. Thank you for everything. If you want to become part of the conversation, you can email us at contact@beyondtheversehq.com. And like I've been saying so many times, respond to our Spotify Q&A and polls, as we do discuss your responses every episode towards the very beginning. Our socials are /BTV_cast, and we do a YouTube replay at /BTV_cast. Join our in-game organization, Soul Provision, which is logistics-minded. It'll be very important with the cargo hauling missions coming right down the pipeline. We will really get into our element then. Super excited about it. But we're about 133 members strong, very active. We had a social night last night for Org Night. A lot of good shenanigans to be had in that organization. So join us. You can do so at www.robertspaceindustriescom/orgs/provision. I hope this has found each of you well wherever you are in your walk of life. I hope you have a good June. Safe travels as you traverse beyond the verse. Take care, everybody.